Welcome back. I hope that everyone had a good sleep after all the excitement and being moved by the Spirit yesterday and having all that joyous time together. I have a few announcements before we do the memorial part of our morning. Some of the announcements. We have some trillium flower pins that were found at the Pearson Airport. They might belong to someone from Ontario. Let Teresa or Rory know they have them so she can return them to you. There will be travel forms in the plenary lobby to pick up if needed so that you can claim for your hotels, meals en route, taxis, etc. They're going to be in the lobby. There are also a selection of resources available free to take. And next to it are some single copies of resources we have copies of at the National Church House. So please sign your name if you want one, and they'll contact you about sending you the copies. All right, thank you. Archbishop Chris.
Good morning, everyone. I think if that's one thing that they're doing here is feeding us too good. Would you agree? This afternoon, I'm going to take a moment to interrupt your meal at the beginning, and I'm going to call the staff out over at the main house, and we're going to give them a thanksgiving for all those young people serving us ever so faithfully and bringing us tea, coffee, iced tea, Pepsi, just as we need it, and they're ever so attentive. So I thank them for that. So we're going to give them an applause then. I wanted to start out this morning with the reality that we are on a trail that has been blazed by many that have gone ahead and who are now at rest. It's right that we remember. It's right that we give thanksgiving for their ministry, for their service, and for their journey with us. And as a people of prayer, we always do that. We remember our elders, we remember our ancestors, we remember, because it keeps us humble as we go forward. And that is so important, that we never get big on ourselves. Because when we start focusing in on ourselves, we lose ourselves. So with that, I'm going to say a prayer. And we've asked you over the last couple of days to start putting names down that you would like to have in remembrance. And I've asked Reverend Canon Murray to speak, to say a few names, as well as our co-chair, Carolyn, as well as Donna. And they're going to say their names. And with each name, as it is mentioned, I ask that you lift up a short prayer of thanksgiving. So with that, the Lord be with you. Let us pray. Creator God, we thank you for this beautiful day you've given to us. We thank you for the journey to which we, each and every one of us, travel together. The journey of life and faith is indeed a wondrous one, and many times our paths cross with others. And it is in this moment, in this time, that we give thanksgiving for their ministry and for their service, for their words and for their offerings. We thank you for their lives and for those that we just want to lift up to you in prayer as well. But all we ask that you hold near and dear and close to you until we are gathered together as one in your great family. Accept our prayers, and especially accept now as we lift up to you in remembrance and thanksgiving in our memorial, our brothers and sisters who have journeyed with us and who we now remember.
Dorothy Phillips, Reverend Ben Hill, Jimmy Toodlecan, Reverend Norm Casey, Jimmy James Einish,
Lorraine Still, Philip Einish, Arthur Anderson, Vivian Seegers, Sundance, Phi Samaha,
Reverend Gary Davis, Andrew Mercer, the Venerable Eli Morris, Reverend Margaret Waterchief, Canon Fanny Beardy, Canon Isla Garson, Reverend Isla Morris, the Reverend Canon Ginny Doctor,
Mary Ruth George Geish, George Wesley, Bishop Tom Corsten, the Reverend Mervyn Wolfleg, who designed our ASIP logo, the Reverend Maria Highway, the Reverend Gary Davis, Iska.
For these names and for so many more in our own communities, we lift up to you, Almighty One. We pray that in their service, in their words and their offerings, that we may carry forward the staff that we have been given, the ministry that we have been given, and that we may walk forward in peace, in hope, in love, in welcoming, in forgiveness, and in new life. We thank you. We thank you, for you have called each and every one of us, and you have named us. From even before we were born, you knew our hearts. You knew our ministry, and you knew the course of our lives. And we thank you for being faithful, for being merciful. We thank you for this moment now that we are able to gather here in the freedom and the health. We thank you for all that are gathered here now. For those that, as they come to their end of their ministries in this course, bless them. For those that end their terms, bless them. for those that hand on the torch and the staff to those that will follow. Bless them. We thank you because we know our ministry does not end, and in that case, we always turn to you, for you are our strength. You are the Spirit. You are the light. We thank you again for this day and for the days past as we remember. We ask for now peace in our hearts and the strength that you can only promise through your Son, who has given everything and who has said, "Where I am, there you may be also." So thus, we lift up to you in joy and thanksgiving these that we have mentioned, and for the many that are in our hearts right now. Be with our brothers and sisters across this land, our relatives from around the world that struggle this day. Bring this world light and peace, hope, love, forgiveness, and a renewal of mind and heart and spirit that we are one in your creation. That as we look for our wider relatives in all of creation, that we may, with respect and humility, remember our place as stewards and caregivers. We give you thanks for the water, the trees, the rocks and soil, for the air and the breezes, for all the spirits in our creation. Humble us as we walk this day forward in new life, new hope, and new peace. Our prayers, our thanksgiving, our memorials, we lift up to you and we pray. In he who is peace, in Jesus' name, and the people say, Amen. 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 We thank you for joining us in the prayer as we remember. We know now that our work is beginning. Just in case anyone thought, oh, we get to take a rest. No. We get to begin. And I think that's what the old team drivers, and especially with the horses, we used to do. Just as soon as everything starts moving, get everyone moving in the same direction and going the same way. It's important that we start this message today. I am going to also make an announcement. I'm going to come around. I've gotten small gifts, and I'm going to be just handing them out. And I know I don't have enough for everybody. But if I don't give you something, you have the greatest gift, that of our love, our respect, and honor. The small gifts that we give are tokens. They're not expensive. They were never meant to be expensive because money means nothing to us. As Indigenous people, we have been poor. We are still poor. And thus we celebrate with small things. If it is small, I still have my first blanket that my great aunt gave to me when I was about 10 years old. That is my greatest treasure, and I hold on to it. She also beaded for me my first moccasins. I have one left. I think one of my other aunts took the other one, but that's okay. And my last lesson is about what we hold and what we treasure. Everything that we have is not ours. Would you agree? It's given to us, but for a short time. I remember buying a brand new chainsaw, a Husqvarna. I was so proud of it. Whew. I had it 6 days before my relative came and said, I need that. And I gave it with a full tank and with a grateful heart. So, this is who we are. This is what we do. And I'm not going to make a big production of things, but I want you to know I'm going to try to give something to each and every one of you that I can. But for those that can't and don't receive anything, you have the greatest gift, our love, our prayers and thanksgiving, our deepest respect. So with that, we are going to jump into our next offering, and I believe that Murray is going to come forward and talk to us a little bit about what he has been really working hard on, and I know that because I get to talk with him quite a bit. And so he's telling me all about it in the midst of my scrambling and running around. And I've been honored to be able to stand and walk with him in this journey for the past 3 months now. And so with that, I'm going to turn the microphone over to him. I've always wanted to do this, just make lots of noise and just sounds like a thunderstorm. There we are.
Thank you, Archbishop Chris. Well, it's a real joy and an honor and a privilege to be with you, my brothers and sisters, over these past few days, and to see the achievements that we have been able to bring forward in terms of our covenant and our way of life. It now is proudly ours to live into. And as we do that, as Archbishop Chris has reminded us, the work now begins in terms of where we go in next steps. The day today, and I'm glad to see so many in red shirts, is deliberate to remember and to honor the missing and the murdered Indigenous men, or women and children. Sorry, and the opportunity is here for us today to remember our women and to give thanks for all women in our presence, and to give thanks for our opportunity to give thanks today. It also is a reminder, at least for me, that this work I described is current, it is now, it is real. We have heard this in the first couple of days since being here, that Indigenous peoples live with intergenerational trauma. It is not a secret that any Indigenous person you meet lives with trauma, intergenerational trauma, the effects of it, from colonization, from the development of the residential schools and the genocide of Indigenous peoples. These are truths, and much of what is going to be said in my presentation is difficult to hear. And we do have a chaplain on site, so we have Lily Bell is with us. Where is Lily? Way at the back there. Lily is your chaplain. So if anything is coming to you that is difficult to hear, do make use of our chaplain. We will probably identify a second chaplain before the day's end, but Lily we're so happy to have her with us. And please do feel free to approach her. And we identified a meeting room and space that she can take you to if you need to. So please do that. Having said that, we live with the difficult truth of the violence and the trauma of our history and our story. And no matter where you travel across this land, and no matter whether you travel across the country, you're going to hear the same things. It was so good to be with our New Zealand brothers and sisters, the Maori. Brenda and I were in New Zealand, I think around 2011. I don't know the exact date, but we were there for a conference. It was called Healing Our Spirit Worldwide. It began in Edmonton, and it's close to 30 years ago now, and that movement comes to Canada in September in Vancouver, Healing Our Spirit Worldwide. I encourage you to look it up and to, if possible, even to attend. At these gatherings, Indigenous people from around the world come together to talk about their story, what they've experienced as a result of colonization, and how they are living with it today. And the common piece of all of the story is the damages done by colonization. No matter where the church went, the impact was the same. The loss of language, cultures, traditions, heritage, spirituality, those things that were touchstones for who we are as the people of God, but also, most importantly, our Indigenous peoples, our heritage. And in this conference, people, Healing Our Spirit Worldwide, folks came forward, and as we moved through the conference, people were beginning to do smaller workshops, and we did one on the blanket exercise, which is the Canadian story. And we had about 30 people in our workshop, and there's a lot of interest, and as people take these resources, then there is more learnings that happen from that, and they can take these resources home with them. But one of the interesting things that we were learning at that conference is that trauma affects each and every Indigenous person right around the world, but we're coming to a place where we can find and utilize the resources through these workshops that can be shared. So it is really good to hear that the Indigenous peoples are becoming lawyers, doctors, social workers, nurses, and more of that is happening around the world. And these are the people speaking at these conferences to say, we need to be proud of who we are as our heritage, and to be able to internalize that for ourselves, to be confident in the reality that we are first people, and we've been here for thousands of years. And the message that we get that, well, you're not good enough, you're invisible, you don't matter, these are messages that were meant to drive us down. And the message that we are now recovering is that was what was brought to us was wrong, and we have apologies now to back up these facts. So the Anglican Church of Canada made its apology in 1993, the National Native Covenant in 1994, and I was very proud to be one of the writers of that covenant, and to see that those who were at that gathering in Winnipeg, a smaller number, but we came together with a common message. And those who were at that gathering, some of them are in this room, and want to make sure that we remember that those moments allowed us the time and the opportunity to be able to say what we needed to say after 1993 in Menaki Lodge. And at that gathering, in the smaller gathering in 1994, the Anglican Church of Canada was doing what it's doing now, a strategic plan. And the strategic plan was, I don't know at that point whether it was 5 years, 3 years, it was a strategic plan. And we came to those gatherings, those of us invited to that particular gathering, we were there because we were on different committees of the church. So I'd been on the BAS Evaluation Commission, and I'd been on the what do they call the one for worship, and the planning and agenda team, those kinds of things. So people who were on national committees were invited to the strategic plans or planning process across the country. And so the Indigenous Ministries was part of that, and those who were part of any of the Anglican pieces were invited to that. So they had all this paperwork of all the committees and all the things that they're doing, and how we might bring it all together and put a plan together. And we said, well, we don't need that. We pushed this papers aside, and we said, we've just come through a very difficult moment in our life at Menaki Lodge just 1 year earlier. We have something to say in it, and it's not found in anything that we're looking at. we had an important message to bring to the church. And so from that, the covenant, there's a preamble, and that was the basic statement that we needed to write about. And just to give you a flavor of that meeting, we had opportunity to do some sharing. And we had some guests with us. We had a Pakeha from Maori, and he said exactly what we heard from the Maori brothers and sisters. They called us Pakeha, but we still don't know what that means. We're trying to figure it out. Those are ones who came to New Zealand from European heritage. And we also had Bishop Stephen Charleston with us, and Bishop Stephen's been to General Synod and has given us a message. And Bishop Stephen Charleston said at the time, it's like the Israelites in the desert, wandering in the desert. And God has a plan to send you into the promised land. We stand here in that moment, doing the same, looking toward the promised land. What words of hope that were given to us. And it was encouraging us to continue talking about what that hope might look like. And so we continued our conversations, and we wanted to say something. So 6 of us were sent to an upper area, another room, and while we talked more about what we were hearing from our discussions, we heard our brothers and sisters who were with us praying and singing loudly so we could hear that. It was what was helping us to move along and to write what we needed to write. And I can tell you that we had this board up there. Mervyn Wolfleg was one of them. We started talking. We started writing on the whiteboard, and it was just a board similar to that one, and we debated every word of what we were doing. No, we took that word out. I don't like what that says. And it took us a long time. It was almost midnight by the time we'd finished. And we then had to take the words of that covenant, and we had to then speak to the gathered the next day and find out whether it made any sense. So Mervyn took us through what was written, and we went around and we talked about it and whether it made sense. And then we asked for consensus. And when we say we are a people of consensus, this is the way we've functioned from day one from sacred gatherings, sacred circles. We reach a consensus. And so we went around. There weren't very many of us, but we went around and we asked, okay, does this make sense? Do you accept this statement? One by one, they said, yes, I accept it. Yes, I accept it. Yes, I accept it. All the way around. And then at the end, once we reached that consensus, in celebration with communion, we signed the documents, as we did yesterday. And so when that happened, it brought back that wonderful moment where I remember we all reached the consensus that we agree with our elders who gave us this vision of self-determination. That one day, we would be proud people again, stand up and acknowledge that we're a people of the land and the waters, and the Creator put us here. We've been here for thousands upon thousands of years, and our task is to be able to nurture each other and to nurture the land and the waters. And that brings me to the moment of time when we were at the World Council of Churches in Germany, in Karlsruhe. 4,500, I think, member churches. First time I've ever stepped off the shores of Canada to go to Europe. And I thought to myself at the time, I says, I don't know how I'm going to get lost in that big place. How am I going to find my way around here? But it's amazing when I got there to realize that you could get from one end of Europe to the other pretty quickly. But there's these 4,500 member churches gathered. And the pre-gathering was a gathering of indigenous peoples, young people included. And I was so proud of our indigenous peoples, and the young especially, as in the pre-gathering they spoke about their hopes and their dreams and the importance of looking after Mother Earth, and that this is not just a climate sort of problem or anything like that. This is a climate crisis we face around the world. In places like Brazil, where one of the leaders had cleared a whole bunch of property from the rainforest. That's our lungs. If we don't have a way to deal with that, it affects each and every one of us. We will all die in the end if we do not protect Mother Earth, and particularly the waters and the lands. So the Indigenous peoples made their statement on the floor, and even our young people going to microphones, people were coming up to help them to speak, and they were there for each other. They supported one another. Not long from now, I'll give you a sort of a sneak preview. Our young will join us. They're here, and they were in Beausejour. And I'm looking forward to that presentation because I can tell you it was an awesome time. And our task, our goal, I think, was achieved. That the Sacred Circle in 2018 asked for a gathering of young adults. We didn't think there was a time when we didn't know whether it was going to happen, but it happened, and it was a real joyous moment. So our young people, we need to support them, to encourage them, particularly to help them to gain the confidence they need in their communities. To say, when you go to your community, remember, you're not alone. We are here for you. Stand in the moment and recognize that we have empowered you to be who you are. Be proud of that. And don't let anyone rob you of your identity. Because we face many things, and this intergenerational trauma is with us. And it affects us in our families. Because the survivors of our residential schools, bless them, honor them, love them, pray for them. But they were affected by the teachings of the residential schools. That who you were didn't matter. Your cultures, your teachings that you were given, you'll go to hell if you happen to do any of that, if you practice any of that. And the treatment of survivors in residential schools as children was horrendous. But one of the things that the children were also learning was the Book of Common Prayer. They were getting the Anglican worship and taught how to live and use the Book of Common Prayer and the prayers of God inside there. It must have been such a difficult time to say, well, here's the book, the Bible, and the teachings of love not being demonstrated in the very place where you're trying to learn those things. It's hard to even wrap your head around those experiences of the survivors in those schools and what they went through. However, when they returned to their communities, their language was lost, couldn't speak the language, couldn't identify with their people in their home communities, and struggled deeply. And their children had difficulty as well because their own parents did not know how to love. I mean, if you're not raised in your home of love, if you're not there, if your parents weren't there to raise you in that love, it is difficult. So all you know is what you have been given. And that spilled over to their children. And it's not unlike people in the world wars who came home with they didn't call it PTSD, but it was shock, shell shock. It was shell shock. So we know what this trauma is about, and we, as a Padre in the Army and Navy and Air Force veterans, I get a chance to hear the stories of the veterans. And I recall in my parish one time, a veteran was in his 90s, and he didn't have much time to live. And I asked him, I said, well, do you have any regrets? And he said to me, yeah, I do. I regret the fact that when I was in the war and shooting with my rifle at the enemy, I didn't even stop to ask, did this enemy I'm shooting at have a family? Was the person married? Children? And that's what I regret. The trauma that has visited Indigenous peoples, some generations, it's going to take us a long time to get out of that. But we at least are on the journey. Our elders, going all the way back, long before 1993, but certainly in 1993, we collected together the hopes and the dreams of those elders to say, one day, we will return to this sense of being proud of who we are and about how our identity will be important for our children and our grandchildren and our great-grandchildren. And so the covenant and way of life is trying to live into that reality, to say that we need to return to our homes and give this message that you are loved, that you are there is healing and there is hope in the return to our traditions. The survivors who are at home, we will have to teach them about the apology for spiritual harm given at the last General Synod. Now there's resources to teach because you've seen the videos. So it's important for those people to get those teachings if they don't understand them, to understand that what was taught in the residential schools about the way of life, our way of life that was lost to us, those teachings that the church said they could not practice that was wrong. So the survivors need to be helped in love, in a loving way, to say, I understand what you've been through. But it is important for us, for me, to recover what was lost so that I can teach it to my children and be proud of that. I can learn my language. I can learn my tradition. I can be proud of the person I am, and I can live into that reality. It's important for me. It's important for me also to be able to bring that into my home, into my spiritual home, the church. Because you see, the church isn't that building that you walk into on a Sunday morning. Many of our people, especially our young, aren't even in our churches. And they're not being taught it at home in terms of what this faith is about living into the gospel of Jesus Christ. I have come not to be served, but to serve, says Jesus. And I am the way, I am the truth, and I am the life. Jesus is the one who will help us in our journey. As we need the words to say, the Spirit will give us those words. We need to be loving and graceful in our approach to our elders and our survivors, so that they can come to understand that we now can do this with the apology. We know our story. We need to be able to teach our story, to be proud of our heritage, and to recover once again those traditions lost. And once you do it, once you start taking and banging on that drum, and once you start singing the songs, and once you start moving and living off the land once again, maybe with some workshops on the land, some land-based teachings, they are happening. Because one of them is, I was talking to Ellen Cook and others and Barbara and others who are from Grand Rapids area, where I first served. There's cultural camps now going on. And you can go to those cultural camps and learn all the teachings, like beading, for example. When I was in Beausejour, it took me 3 days to make one little bag of a medicine pouch. But many did it. I was so impressed in a very short period of time. But when you have that, and you can learn that these are pieces of things that are part of who we are, bring them back, teach others. And the more that learn, the more that we will be able to advance healing and advance reconciliation, because we will have language classes and for people to learn their languages. We will have workshops for people who can learn about the story, the proper story of who we are. And we can learn about ways to partner with non-Indigenous peoples in a loving way. Back home in my community in Winnipeg, my wife is an early childhood educator, and Brenda, as an elder for her school, the early childhood education program. And it's a great joy to be with little ones. And today, many schools, if not all of them, I don't know if all of them are doing it, many schools today do what's called a land acknowledgement. And it's basically trying to help people to understand the importance of the land and of the first peoples who have been there for thousands of years, and how we can now try to live in harmony together. So the land acknowledgements are an important tool, and they're read every morning on the broadcast in the school. And so in the schools, they are doing that, but Brenda thought they needed to know a little bit more, so it was Earth Day. It's a wonderful opportunity on Earth Day to take a look at Earth, Mother Earth, the land, and the importance of her in giving life, and how we need to protect her. Maybe pick up some garbage here and there. There are many things, from the small all the way to the large, that we can do. But she invited me in, and I taught the young ones about the importance of the land and looking at that and what it means. And that teaching led to other opportunities, like the blanket exercise, like the mapping exercise, and other things now that the staff, now that they've been through these experiences, because as elder for the school, we're able to bring in people to help with those resources. They are now turning around as allies. And these young children it was really neat to see their little protest signs of the traffic going by, that children are equal, and help our children, and to be able to give a message, a positive message, to say things need to change. And as people learn in a good way, they become allies. And being an ally is important, because we need to walk with each other. And I think, as has been said many times, we are relatives. And if we are in an Indigenous or non-Indigenous gathering of some kind, we could say, I greet you as relatives, because you are all my relatives. And when the missionaries were baptizing, and when we continued the practice of baptisms, we were making relatives. And those relatives are important for us as we continue the journey together. We could not just go quickly ahead on our own. And that's why healing and reconciliation takes time. It's going to go maybe a little bit faster in some areas than others. There'll be pockets of places slower, but the land acknowledgements are there to begin with in our communities. And the ability to look at the resources that are there from Anglican Video that tells our story. I'm so grateful for Anglican Video, because if you don't know our story, I commend the videos to you. They're easy to find on the Anglican Church's website, and start with the first one and go all the way to today, and you've got the story there. So within at least the Anglican context, you will have that wonderful resource to be able to share. And anytime we go to workshops and resources, to take them home. One of the things they said to us at Menaki Lodge in 1993, and those of us from the Diocese of Rupert's Land took that seriously. They said, go home and tell them what you're learning here. Tell the story of what we've been doing. It's no good to come to a sacred gathering, go home and keep it all to yourself. It must be shared, what we're doing. We must help others to understand the message that we are giving here, and to share the resources that are there for us. And on Indigenous Day of Prayer, to even to utilize those resources and do as some parishes like mine are doing in Winnipeg, take the entire month, Indigenous Awareness Month, and find the Indigenous resources near you and have them come to your church and bring in, as we have done, the jingle dancers and the people with the songs and the healing songs. Bring them to the parish church to let them know that this is not outlawed, that this is a natural, normal way that we will praise our Creator. Bring that into the sanctuary and begin the process of recognizing that we are one together under our Creator, that God and our Creator has created us in all different languages, all different races, red, white, yellow, black. And our teachings our teachings of the medicine wheel being important to us are not difficult to connect to the gospel, because you'll find them there. And one of the important things that I would see in the medicine wheel, for example, as we have many of our survivors and elders and elderly people at our gathering, is that the medicine wheel itself teaches that we are born into this world with needing a lot of help. Somebody has to look after you when you're born. Mom takes care of you, dad takes care of you. You're born into this world needing a lot of help. Aunties, uncles, cousins. And our Indigenous community is egalitarian. That means it's not individualistic, me, myself, and I. And that's why Archbishop Chris says, well, if somebody needs the new whacker for the weed whacker, they came and they borrowed it. And you got it back, but but it may take a while, because if one person is whacking their grass or whatever and somebody else sees that and needs one, well, it could take a while for it to return. But that's what an egalitarian society is all about. It is aunties, uncles, cousins, and the wider extended family helping one another and loving one another in that context of what family is. And we are all family. And so it is really important to recognize this, because we're born into this world needing that help. And if you live long enough to go around that circle of life, and you get to whatever age is 90, 100, some of them. I had an auntie that just died, and she was 104. So if you live long enough, you'll get to that point where, again, at the end of life, you will also need the same kind of help that you did when you were first born. I'm discovering that as someone who is. My mom is going to be, I think she'll be 90 in October. And my mom is given me so much in terms of help and identity through the years. My mom worked on something like 70 or 80 Indigenous reservations across Canada. She was a big part of the conversations and reconciliation and across the country. And she was a community developer and treatment addictions counselor. And so she was able to help me to understand a lot of these things as I was trying to learn. But the reality is that as we get older, my mom included, now is the moment where I have to take my time to make sure she's doing okay, checking in on her, and to make sure that keeping socialized. One of my favorite things is to go bowling with her Monday nights, and she always sorry, Mom, she always complains about not getting enough score. I mean, when I was younger, I'd get scores of 200 and 300. So when we say we come together bowling, it doesn't really matter what the score is. We just go out there and have some fun, a little bit of exercise. Thankfully, that's still going on, and to maintain the social networking, the medical appointments, whatever might be there to maintain the independence and the ability to stay connected and that kind of thing. So if we live long enough, we must do, well, as the medicine wheel teaches us, to look after each other. On that medicine wheel, if you look at where the age levels are, you look across to the other side of the circle, there's a responsibility as you go across that line to look after the others who are there. So it is important, for example, for the ones who are in their 40s, 50s-ish, to look out for our young adults, young ones who are just coming up, teenagers into their adult years, to help them to understand. And on this day of remembering the missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls, to teach especially our young boys and to what it means to respect your siblings, who are your sisters and your aunties, your moms and all those women, to give them the due respect. It's up to us as men to be able to honor and respect those who are sacred to us, and to keep that in mind as we move forward, to continue to teach the ways to live into this love. Now, all this talk is really coming around to the fact that this trauma that we're living, that we live with and we're trying to grow out of, is what came to me in a vision one day. Not a vision, a sort of just came to me as I was at home one day, and I was thinking about all the kinds of difficulties that we have lived with, and all the kinds of things that we want to do, and the reality that in the northern communities in this land, there's a lot of suicides among young people, and so in some places almost like an epidemic. And there's a violence, crime, addiction, and we know this to be truth. This is truth. You need to read it in the newspapers. In terms of missing and murder, we're still trying to get people to understand that we don't care how much it costs in that landfill. Our loved ones are there. And we want closure. We want that. We don't care what it costs. We want to find our lost, and we need this. And so we continue to push, and this is where our allies are helping us to make sure that they get this word out. So that trauma is real and alive. So I thought, why could we not, instead of getting our people trying to go to the big cities and areas to get them out of their communities to find help, is there not something we could do to train people, to train others, to remain in their communities, to be the resources for intergenerational response? So if there's something happening that they may have this way to respond to that particular trauma. So I took a course in Winnipeg, continuing education called, it was from the Crisis and Trauma Resource Institute in Winnipeg, on how to respond to trauma. It was a 10-day certificate course. So you get this big binder at the end, and now you can utilize some of those teachings. So I called them up and asked them if there's a way we might be able to utilize their training to send people into the north and to train trainers. And the answer was yes, you could do that. But we can't go up there. We'd have to have at least 30. So if you can find 30 people up in the north, we'll send an Indigenous trainer out there, and you can do that. So I got to thinking, well, okay, how would this happen? And it just popped into my head, the Canadian Red Cross. Through this time of the memorials for the children and all those kinds of things, and the suicides that had been started in our communities, we wanted a response. Archbishop Mark at the time, he gathered people together with the Canadian Red Cross virtually by Zoom, and we started a conversation with them. And they then started to design a suicide response, and we're seeing that response now. And you're going to hear some of that coming up later in our business. So I commend Dorothy and her team because they're going to have a wonderful presentation to you about that. But one of the persons I remembered who was in Winnipeg is Bran Friesen. And Bran, as a member of the Red Cross, I told her, here, this is what I've been thinking about. And so we got together and had a coffee. We sat down, and it was just at the end of the street where the church is. And I started telling her about this vision of intergenerational trauma response. And she brought her laptop, and as I spoke, she was tapping away. I don't know what she was doing, but at the end of our visit, she turned her laptop around to me, and she says, "Here, look at this. Stage 1, Stage 2, Stage 3, with a budget on each one." That's how gifted this person is, and the Canadian Red Cross overall. So she said, here you are. Now all you have to do is to find some funding. Well, in comes the Primus World Relief and Development Fund. And having a conversation with our good friend Will, and at a meeting of the Council of General Synod, said, well, this is what's going on, and I need a little bit of funding for that. He says, well, we'd be willing to chip in some funding. Also got a conversation going with the Lutherans. We would be interested in chipping in some funding. So I threw an application into the Acts of the MNO Synod, and thankfully, that was accepted, and so the two grants coming together allowed us to do Stage 1, which is the planning of this response in the way that honors the mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual response in the community. So we came together in Winnipeg, and we planned how that would look like in a community response as this trauma Train the Trainer program was happening in a northern community. And of course, we went to Bishop Isaiah Larry Beardy up in the northern part of Manitoba, and he was open to this program and is hopefully going to help us along the way when we get to Stage 2, which is the delivery of the program. And that program is going to be it's going to be a powerful program, but we will need funding for that. And I said, as Bran reminded us, don't worry if it doesn't happen this year, because it's going to cost a lot of money. It costs about a minimum $250,000 to $300,000. So we're still going to be looking at the funding for Stage 2, which is supposed to happen this summer, this August in northern Manitoba, as a pilot project. And then once the pilot is delivered, we'll come back for Stage 3, which will be to gather those who were trained, send them back to the northern community to do a workshop and involve the community in that, then to evaluate that and to bring in a consultation of academic institutions, theological institutions, people who have an interest, and bring them together for a conversation as to what resources are out there that we could bring together, videos, etc., and bring them into the communities so that those who are trained will also have those resources at home in their communities. And the more people who we have the Train the Trainer program, they can train others. Now, if this pilot is successful, then we would return to bring it back to, it would come then to ASIP to consider in what way we could begin moving the pilot across the land so that more will have it. So we have to start somewhere in terms of healing and reconciliation, and the government seems to argue, provincial, federal, who's going to pay for what monies are available. And what we found here was the working with our partners, the Canadian Red Cross to begin with. And while we were in Winnipeg, we had the chief from Long Plain Reserve, First Nation, and we also had with us a couple of guests. We had an elder to the Assembly of First Nations, and we also had an Indigenous lawyer. And these folk were very important to us. They came, and when we first introduced them, they were kind of giving us a lot of negative comments about the church, and look at the damage you've done, and look at where we're at, and that kind of thing as the church. And telling us things that we already knew. I mean, you're preaching to the choir here. We know what's going on. And so we invited them to stay, and they did. And their attitude changed toward the end. And now the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs is asking for a conversation, and I hope that will happen. Because when we get together, this pilot is important for all of us, and they recognize this. So if we can bring them on board, combine their assistance with the Red Cross, and the Primus World Relief and Development will continue to journey with us, I think we might have a pilot that could inform us and help us to understand how we might take that and move it across the country so that people have opportunities for healing and reconciliation. And the things that we learned in Beausejour can be transported into communities like that. So there is much hope in this program, and we didn't stand idle at ASIP. We were working hard on projects that we felt could be managed to a point where we could try something like this as a pilot. So I commend the pilot to your prayers, and if anybody knows out there someone who has some money that they can send our way, that would be helpful, because the project will go ahead once this funding is in place. We have as I say, the planning is now done, and we know the direction we're headed. We have the resources available to us, and we feel that this will make a huge impact. So I'm just going to, the stage 1, 2, and 3 are out there. Stage 3 has just been sort of outlined in terms of where we're headed with it, in terms of its story, and then some figures our budget is going to be put next to it. And then once we have that, that will form our part of our conversation with the grantors. So that's where we sit with the intergenerational trauma response. I commend it to you for prayer. I give thanks to our Archbishop Chris and ASIP for encouraging us and to giving us the prayers and support as we move forward. And I invite your prayers as we continue to move into this particular program. There's just a couple of minutes if anybody has a question. Back there, Ray. Question or comment, Ray? If you there's a microphone coming up to you.
I commend you to all your work. I just want to bring to your attention, if you're interested in people learning about the education that has happened to our Indigenous people over the years, that's one of the courses we're offering this summer. That course is available in person or hybrid. She's the primary instructor is from Haida Gwaii, and she's taught this course at the University of British Columbia, and it'll talk about the history of education that happened to our people and going forward, better ways to impart teaching the traditions. Also, I commend you on the work. We followed a similar role since 2004. My wife and I and a team, Rick and Linda Martin. Linda is from Muskrat Dam. I think her mom was on the Elders Council for Lydia, Bishop Lydia, and we call it Inanamoan, talking about the feelings, and it's a very good sort of local-based kind of approach to build support groups for people who have suffered abuse or extreme disappointment. We continue to do those if we can be of assistance at the Vancouver School of Theology. We do have some funds to continue to do those. We've done, I think, 22 over the last 3 years in different communities. Also, by way of, if you're looking for someone, Patricia Vickers, who's Simpson, she has the best approach to intergenerational trauma. She's done those kinds of things that you're describing. She's done those. She's worked extensively with Gabor Mate, and I think her stuff is probably the best stuff out there. So, and she continues, she has a team of people that does those kinds of training. So I commend her to you if you need contact information. Some of you probably even know Patricia. So Roy Vickers, the artist, is her brother. And so I just commend you on your report and everything you're doing, and I'm thankful that somehow Vancouver School of Theology was doing these things all along too. So any way that we can come alongside of what all of you are doing in your communities, reach out to us and we'll try to make things happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Ray. I commend Vancouver School of Theology. As an alumni, I know how wonderful the Vancouver School of Theology is, and commend it to anyone looking for studies, particularly that summer program. So make sure you talk to Ray and get if you haven't already, and get the materials that you need and contacts, and we will be in touch about that, because those resources are going to be important for us as we head down the road. There was a question over.
Good morning. Wish you all good morning. My name is Alex Campbell, Reverend Alex Campbell from Capel. Again, like Ray, I commend all the good work that you're doing there, and I think that's excellent way of moving forward. One of the things that I haven't, maybe I'm just missing it, and I fell asleep somewhere between last Sunday and today, but one of the things that I found in all the years that I'm giving you my life experience, and I'm making some recommendations to you on what you look at, you might have, like I said, you might have it already in your system. But I find that we need to have a process for our lay readers, our priests, our deacons, our bishops, to go to a place where they need help. And I'm talking about things that we've heard in the church all these years about the abuse that our people have experienced, that we don't do the same thing as an Indigenous community with our people. So if there shouldn't be any personal bias when we run the organization. And then there should be a place for priests to go to if they're having difficulties getting bullied. And then there has to be a fair process to deal with that situation right now and not cover it with the carpet. That's what I'm saying right now, and I'm telling you this from life experience, from myself and from others that I've seen, that because we're Indigenous people, we're not taken serious. We're not taken serious with our life experience, our education, and all they see is a brown-skinned person. Those are the kind of things that the organization, if we're moving forward, we're a new organization, and we're going to be a positive organization moving forward. We need to have systems in place now to deal with those, because they're happening right now, I'm telling you. Yeah. So thank you.
Thank you so much. What that really talks about is the urgency and the immediacy of these kinds of things. People don't want programs 10, 20 years down the road. We need to be able to engage in this now and get this work underway. So thank you so much for that. And very good. And say hello to the good folk at Coupel. It's a fond place to be. Remember Coupel in my journey. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Catherine. I'm a military chaplain, and just put it out there. About 25, 30 years ago, we were having chaplains going into places like Somalia and Bosnia, where there's really horrific acts being done against people. And the chaplains were ending up broken because of the ministry that they were given to traumatize people. So the Canadian Forces Chaplaincy developed a program called Care for the Caregivers, which is a one-week gathering of about 10 people who have recently been in these intense situations to help care for them and to process what they've been through, this weighty time of intense ministry. Do you have anything in this process that is going to care for those ministers who are going to be immersed in these situations so that they're not broken later? Because I tell you, there's still a high number of health services personnel in the Canadian Forces and chaplains who are releasing from PTSD.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for that comment. The reality is the care for the caregiver is so important today because many of our Indigenous clergy, even throughout the North, with these suicides and pastoral interventions in the communities, are reaching points of burnout, and it is difficult for them to continue. And So part of the purpose of the pilot, of course, is to find ways to do exactly that. So the stage 3 consultation, when we get there, will be looking at what is available. Ray has already talked about some really good resources that will come to us through a consultation that could even happen in Vancouver. We can get the money to go over there. Well, maybe that's where we'll meet, because we're not quite there yet, but I think we will try to draft the resources and then build them for ourselves. One of the things we can do, for example, is there are people who are good writers and theologically and otherwise that can prepare writing for some resources. In my opinion, the training for in seminaries for clergy and lay leaders as well in our parishes need to be able to be trained in trauma and a response to trauma in a context. For example, when you're going out into parish ministry, you recognize that there is that piece of work that is solid and it's there that needs to be done in terms of pastoral care. So if we can make sure that the resources are written up, and here's, for example, one small thing is I'm a part of the International Order of St. Luke the Physician. It's a healing ministry that's around the world. And if we could combine the healing service that is part of their liturgical material with a traditional healing circle, where you could take that, write the process up so that people could do it, have some practical exercises in doing it, where you actually get a chance to pray with someone, anoint them, and follow up with counseling afterwards in terms of the training that we need. So that's a piece that is, to me, dear to my heart. The pilot will begin the work, I think, and part of what we're trying to do is collect these resources so eventually it gets spread out so everybody has access to them. And you don't have to call somewhere quickly to find it, because it is a need that is current and needed now. So I hear what you're saying, and I think it's so very important. Thank you for raising that. Yes.
My name is Catherine Martin. My Tsimshian name is Kugwalksum Sabach Boon. I come from the Skeena River, my mother's village, and the Doon Kitsalas. I grew up in my father's village, Kitsum Kalem. Not too long ago, a Niska carver carved a totem pole which stands beside my father's village, Highway 16 West, 2 hours inland from the Prince Rupert Port. And it was dedicated to the missing and murdered women along Highway 16. And to hear what you're talking about, the program, the stages you're going to be going through, I wish I could be a part of that, to add on to the work that the Niska Carver did for the community of Kitsum Kalem and all missing, murdered women across Canada. I lost a lot of my friends when that was going on. I was just a teenager then, and I remember the loss of growing up this age without them, because we made plans. We had dreams. We were going to take over the world. We're going to be standing at the podium where you are to help people. But it didn't happen that way. And with the help of my father, my grandmother, and all my aunts and uncles, they helped me stand up, keep going, carry on, find something to do, to help, always help. As a child, I was always left beside the elders. I didn't get to go to the drive-in. I didn't get to go skinny dipping at the local swimming pool like everybody else did. I heard the stories. I know I wasn't supposed to listen, but I heard. I stand alone. And thanks to my elders, they helped me to learn to stand alone. And to continue to help. Every day I think about something to do to help for the betterment of the community, for the betterment of the young ones that I don't want them to see the vicious cycle that I went through, that my friends that have been murdered. I will be filling out the application for the School of Theology. I don't know which program, but I'm rolling up my sleeves. I'm ready to go. That's all I have to say.
Thank you so much. And I just want to say again how much I loved hearing your Indigenous name. And this is what a big part of our process is, to make sure that we honor and respect these names given to us by our Creator. Thank you so much.
Hadalasis. Di awi hukliang hino di can. My hidden name is Sini Raven, and I asked them to call me Awi Hukliang, Sini Raven Mother. I'm just grateful for today and all that we're hearing, and I'll be even more happy when all these things come to action. And before my mind forgets Ray, I think it's Arlene Roberts, and she's not from Haida Gwaii, the one that's teaching this summer? Unless you mean someone else. But anyway, and Ray mentioned Patricia Vickers, and she has come to Haida Gwaii, and she's been very helpful for us. But I'm happy for what I'm hearing, and will be even more happy when it's put into action by many of us, all of us. Because the hardest thing to do is to put our loved ones to rest before their time, especially the ones that have died from drugs and alcohol and from their addictions. And I told some of the women, the Jaralung that I was with not too long ago, and I said, we all know why this happens. Even before they take that first drink or that drug, it happens because of all the trauma of the abuses that we've went through. And many of us, to those that are truthful, and this is what I pray, that, we would be truthful about what happened, because a lot of times our people try to cover it up in what really happened to us, to the person that passed. But and I told them, we know why our people, our precious loved ones, have ended up with these addictions. It's mainly because of the trauma of the sex abuse that a lot of us have encountered throughout our life. And a lot of our people do not even want to go there. because we end up wanting to protect our loved ones. But I always think if we go there, that is what will bring us healing. And I pray for this all the time because it's so hard, because I've went through that myself as in growing up. And it's so hard because you think you're the only one. And yet there's so many of us that carry that same of everything that happened to us in our life. We want it to be a secret. We don't want to tell others. So we just continue to pray for healing and pray that people will even be able to tell their hard and difficult stories, and that it won't just become gossip throughout our communities, but it will become that we will become a healing place for one another in our hearts. Because I know, and you know, it's so, I always say, I don't have too many more years left on this earth. And I just pray that our people will begin to truly, truly heal in every way from all the things that afflicted us and hurt us and marred us through our life. I am also on the health committee in our community, and I stay in those places even though it takes so much commitment, because I want healing for all of us. So I'm so logan. I am happy that we are here. And I pray that we'll continue to speak with one voice. Swanson kill. That we would speak with one heart. Swanson ook. I don't know all of my Haida language, but the ones I learn become so precious. So Hawa, thank you.
Thank you. I think Sheila, if you do you still have Sheila had a comment to make over here, and then I think we're almost ready to wrap up.
Gila Kesla, my name is Sheila Cook. I am a Sakakoop Cree Nation, Sandy Lake Reserve in just north of PA. I was born in the beautiful unceded lands of the Kwagbuth peoples in what is claimed as Port Hardy, BC. I have been appointed priest in charge of Christchurch, Alert Bay, Yalis. Gabor Mate says, the reason why this hurts is because we are inherently born for right relationship. We're inherently born, all of us, for right relationship. And so we are seeking this right relationship in a traumatized society. We live, we walk, we breathe in a traumatized society. This is where we're seeking help. We live and breathe and eat white knuckle, waiting for the next grant and being numb because we can't do the job of the grant 3 times ago. This is our world. We can't live white knuckle watching our people die. And we work together as creator, as visitor, and as First People. And how do we do that? We live in the world, and that world is money. We talk about bottom lines. Our bottom line is we need money. We need the support so that we can stand. We need our matriarchy to support our chiefs, our men, to support an egalitarian system. Our matriarchy is white knuckle, trying to keep their grandchildren alive. We were born for right relationship. Righteousness, the Christian righteousness means right relationship, period. We can't be scraping for money. We can't be scraping for money. Kinanas Kubitin, I thank you.
Thank you, Shali. All right, is the next thing lunch? If so, I think we're done in terms of this, and we have to get to lunch. Rupert's Landers are on board to say grace and sing for us. So.
Can the people from the Diocese of Rupert's Land please come up? So John is going to lead us in a song, and it is Christ. Sorry. There we go. Page number 27, Softly and Tenderly. And then after that, our elder Barbara is going to say the grace.
Softly and tenderly, Jesus is calling, calling for you and for me. Throw away waiting and watching, watching for you and for me. Come home, come home. Tenderly, Jesus is calling, calling, oh sinner, come home. Why should we tarry when Jesus is pleading, pleading for you and for me? Why should we linger and heed not his mercies? Mercies for you and for me. Come home, come home. O sinner, come home. Time now is fleeting, the moments are passing from you and from me. Shadows are gathering, deathbeds are calling for you and for me. Come home, come home. You who are weary, come home. Earnestly, tenderly, Jesus is calling, oh sinner, come home. Oh, for the wonderful love he has promised for you and for me. Though we have sinned, he has mercy and pardon for you and for me. Come home, come home. You who are weary, come home. Earnestly, tenderly, Jesus is calling, oh sinner, come home.
Let us pray. And stegen naskumit nanomat kabit siya akanust. Loving God, we give you thanks for this day. We ask that you be with each and every one of us as we journey together. We ask that you bless the food that we are going to receive. We give thanks for all those young people that come to service. All this we ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
So it's lunchtime now, and enjoy your meal.
Sorry, for those of you who are involved in the Urban Indigenous Ministry and those of you who are working alongside those, can you come and meet us? Can you come and over here so we can meet here, and then we'll all go for lunch. Thank you.
chat with you a little bit about my a little bit about my presentation before my presentation, which is this afternoon. So it has to be lunch. I'm going to be like mostly talking about the all parties doctrine, which is, you know, kind of laughing at myself. And I said to Marie, but most of the people we have but there's like a handful of people who've seen it all. And so I don't want it to be very speak in that way, can you let them know I'm ready to test this now? Okay, thank you. Yes. Purple? Okay. No. Oh, it's still on. I'm ready now. Oh, I haven't backed up my computer in 129 days.
Oh, it's funny that it's not on there. It should be on there. Oh, do you want to go into presenter view?
Yep.
And how's your power, your battery power?
Oh, not great. I can at lunch grab my thing though.
And I have an extension if you need. Oh, plug right there. So
Oh, okay.
I can bring an extension cord down if you like.
But it's not.
Stage it. You're on stage, eh? It's not coming up and we're.
Done. Go do that. Thank you.
Oh. I know, it does.
Oh, there it is.
Yay.
So you might just have to do that. Okay.
Yeah, and that's it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Somebody will help me if needed though. like, when
We're
I come
right
up
here.
Okay,
If you
good.
need anything at all, because what we'll do is we'll have the. I can't remember what order you're in. Are you first?
I'm at 4.
You're at 4.
Yeah.
And the presentation before you also has PowerPoint, so the screen will be here. We're running it from there. So yes, I will help you down here.
Okay, that'd be
Okay.
great. What's your name again?
Becky.
Becky.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, great. So do I just unplug right now?
Yes,
Okay.
you can do that. That would be fine. And I'll leave everything here,
Okay.
just the way it is. Would you like me to bring a PowerPoint down, just in case?
Yeah, sure. That would be great.
Okay, and you have a USB-C,
That's the little tiny one.
right?
Yeah.
And do you have your plug?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll bring a power cord, and you have your plug.
I'll get it at lunch.
Perfect, and we'll just plug that in too, just to be sure.
Cool.
Good.
Thank you.
Yeah.